Peace and love, family. Before we get tonight's discussion started, please be reminded that tomorrow, Sunday, June the 13th, at 12 p.m. to 6 p.m., we will be having another buck breaking event in Baltimore City. All right. So for the first 2.5 hours, we're going to show the buck breaking film, followed by lectures by myself, Dr. Wesley Muhammad, and Lord Jamal. He'll be in the building. He will be in the building tomorrow, family. So get your tickets as soon as possible. For more information, you can call 410-303-4120 or 410-303-5624, or email Daddy Watoto. Let me bring this up. daddywatoto@gmail.com. Family, get your tickets tonight. Tickets are selling out. Seats are limited due to COVID. We only can fit 200 people in the building. And so the last event, we literally had to turn people away. So it's best to get your ticket as soon as possible. Okay, get it now. Get it now so that you won't be turned away. Tonight, family, you're in for a treat. We got brother Asar Imhotep in the building. Lord Abba is in the building, and brother BTP Ali is in the building. Tonight, we will be discussing can reparations be achieved with or without Pan-Africanism? And you already know, I already had a discussion with brother OMOWALE Africa. He says, yes, Pan-Africanism is needed in order to achieve reparations. I brought on Lord Abba. Lord Abba, by the way, King, your daggone video is like climbing right now. But Lord Abba came on. He blew it up last week, and he said, hell no, we don't need Pan-Africanism. But then Asar Imhotep came through the chat, and he said, whoa. You know, Pan-Africanism is necessary. He even threw out like a book he mentioned. And so brother Asar said he's coming here tonight to set the record straight. So family, be sure to share this show. Sharing is caring. Let's get some people in the building. I see you coming in the building. Shout out to my brother, Karad Gordon. I see it says Toronto is in the building. So I see you all are trickling in tonight. The Queen Mother, Althea, you are in the building tonight. Peace to everyone who's here. Make sure that you share the show. Let's get the word out. Let's get the party started, family. Peace and Black Power.
Let's combat and fight back with maltracks. The war of the minds, they want control of the masses. And Common Core, they dumb us down in the classes. Without knowledge, we can't gain access. Build with the elders, take notes and write classes. We keep whining on the block, how it's gonna stop? Let's start supporting our own, make their supply drop. We buy stocks, then we buy blocks. Cause we know the truth and we tuned in to dr.maat.msu.
B1, a BB Fahodi, a BB Tuni, peace and love, family. Welcome to another Truth to Power Talk with your sister, Dr. Maat. Thank you for joining another powerful discussion. And tonight I have with me 3 powerful guests, brother Asar Imhotep, Lord Abba, and brother BTP Ali are in the building. Tonight, family, we are discussing, can reparations be achieved with or without Pan-Africanism? So is Pan-Africanism necessary, in order to achieve reparations? If you've been following the discussions, family, you already know that, brother Asar Imhotep, he said, yes, it's necessary. But Lord Abba and his crew, they said, no, you don't need Pan-Africanism. So family, tonight, we're going to have sort of a discussion / debate going on. So again, family, share the show. Sharing is caring. Also, family, if you're watching this broadcast on any other platform, be sure to head on over to YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube channel, hit the notification bell so that as soon as I go live, you will be notified. All right, so tonight the brothers will be answering 3 questions. The first question is, which strategy is best to achieve reparation? Pan-Africanism or good old American politics? The second question, how do you implement the strategy that you support, right? Third question is, can you present prior examples of success? So each team will have at least 10 minutes. Let me see what I text you, Lord Abba. I text you a format. So each side will be given 10 minutes to answer each question. After the questions are answered, there will be a rebuttal round. During this round, each person will be given 10 minutes to address the other person's answers and or to clarify their previous. answers. So I see you all in the building. Peace to everyone who joined us again, family. Let's get the views up. Let's start, let's share this show. Let's get the views up, man. Let's get up to at least 100 folks, live on air. So before we get started, I want each person to introduce, himself. And Sinjetti just texted me. He said, send me the link. Brother Sinjetti just texted me. He said, send me the link to the show. So Brother Sinjetti, I knew he wasn't going to leave you out there like that. So I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself, Brother Asar Imhotep, while I get Brother Sinjetti in the show.
All righty. Peace and blessings to the family. This is Brother Asar Imhotep, a.k.a. Ifa Muyiwa Fagbimi. And I am a computer scientist and Africana historian in the field of Africology. My tools are linguistics and cultural anthropology. And I am happy to be here to have this much needed discussion and clarity on the nature and role of Pan-Africanism in African liberation. Thank you.
Ashe, Lord Abba.
Peace. What's going on, family? It's your brother Naheem, BKA Lord Abba, AKA Mr. Just the Facts. That's all we do is just the facts. Be the Power is in the building. Shout out to all the freedmen. I was just on last week, but to be brief, those that know me. Somewhat of a Moorish scholar, somewhat of a scholar on several things. But right now we are pushing politics and the resurrection of our freedmen identity so that we could self-identify as our own tribe and have the American government disaggregate us from the rest of the quote-unquote diaspora. That's one of the methods they use to keep us down. And we'll get into some of that a little bit later.
All right, peace, BTP Ali, brother. Go ahead, you have the floor, brother.
Well, thank you, sis. I'm glad to be here. I'm a member also of Be the Power along with Brother Lord Abba, as well as a member of the United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen, which he mentioned, the Freedmen identity, which is the identity of the people, or the status actually of the people who were emancipated in 1865 via the 13th Amendment in particular. And the work that was done during the Reconstruction period that was supposed to be done, that was not finished, that was overthrown. And we're about the advocacy of reestablishing that work and finishing that work that was interrupted through white terrorism and everything else. So basically, that's what my job is, to help educate people and to build the advocacy for the descendants of freedmen in this country.
Ashe. All right, thank you for that. BTP Ali. I'm waiting for. I just sent Brother Sinjetti the link, and so hopefully he'll be joining us shortly. But in the meantime, we can jump on in, to the first question, which is, what is the best strategy? What strategy is best? To achieve reparations, Pan-Africanism, or good old American politics? Who wants to go first, Brother Asar or Lord Abba? Which one?
I think Brother Asar should go first, being that we kind of laid out our case last week. So his appearance here is a response to what we said, and then we can just elaborate a little bit further on the question from our position.
Okay, so which strategy, Brother Asar, is best? Pan-Africanism or just participating in good old American politics? Oh, you're muted, Brother Asar.
Testing.
Well, you're good. I'm going to mute my mic while you speak. Okay, go ahead, brother.
Yes. What I was saying is that it just depends. And I think there needs to be some clarity first on what Pan-Africanism is and what it all encompasses. And I think when we get that clarity, then we will see just how limited the nature of the debate is in the first place. And so it's going to require me to share my screen. And let me know if y'all can see everything.
I can see your screen.
All righty. And so the fundamental question is, can reparations be achieved without Pan-Africanism? My answer is yes and no. Some important books for those in the audience who want to study Pan-Africanism. There's Unity or Poverty, The Economics of Pan-Africanism. There's the Routledge Handbook of Pan-Africanism. And then there's the Encyclopedia of Black Studies. And I would want you to go to the entry on Black nationalism. And so those texts are there for your reference. And some of this will come from these texts. And so the main question is, what is Pan-Africanism? And so I want to give some context to the discussion and the nature and the evolution of Pan-Africanism. So we first start off with the ideas as expressed by W.B. Du Bois. He says in The World in Africa, the text, the idea of one Africa to unite the thought and ideals of all native peoples of the dark continent belongs to the 20th century and stems naturally from the West Indies and the United States. Here, various groups of Africans, quite separate in origin, became so united in experience and so exposed to the impact of new cultures that they begin to think of Africa as one idea and one land. Thus, in the late 18th century, when a separate Negro church was formed in Philadelphia, it called itself African, and there were various African societies in many parts of the United States. So the idea of Pan-Africanism emerges from the unity of the Africans in the various parts of the West. For example, African Americans or the Jamaicans or the Haitians in those different locales. Wherever a gang of people of Africans had to unite, they formed one unit, one common kind of cultural experience as a result of, you know, the different factors that brought them there together in the first place. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The late historian Rayford Logan, who used to teach at Howard University, in his text, The Historical Aspects of Pan-Africanism, kind of lays out something that a lot of people may not realize about Pan-Africanism. So he says the credit for conceiving the idea of the Pan-African Conference that met in London in 1900 belongs to Henry Sylvester Williams, a young West Indian lawyer. Among his aims were to bring peoples of African descent throughout the world into closer touch with one another and to establish friendlier relations between the Caucasian and African races. That he did not envision self-government or independence in Africa is evident from another of his stated objectives, namely to start a movement looking forward to the securing to all African races in civilized countries their full rights and to promote their business interest. It was William Edward Booker Du Bois, W.B. Du Bois, as chairman of the conference's committee on address to the nations of the world, who transformed Williams' limited conception of Pan-Africanism into a movement for self-government or independence of African peoples. So this idea of Pan-Africanism emerges on the security and the establishment of the full rights, both economic and politically, in each respective place where people in the African diaspora have been placed in these quote unquote, what he, you know, using the language of the day, those civilized nations. And so when you read further their literature, you know, this includes reparation, which includes free education, you know, the establishment of certain institutions and things of this nature. And then here comes Du Bois in the same conference, who expands on the idea of Sylvester Williams or Henry Williams on including the notion of self-government or independence, or basically sovereignty of African people. And so when it comes to the idea of reparations is already built in to the whole Pan-African movement, as far as going back to this 1900 conference, which is why the conversation of the research question is really, in my opinion, a silly one. And so we're talking about two different but related things. And so you're talking about, on one hand, the establishment or the retribution and payment to a specific group of people, a legal aspect over here in the United States. But then there's a broader, power dynamic which Pan-Africanism, seeks to address. So you have reparations, that is the result or what is sought after from an external entity who caused an injury to the group of people, to the marginalized Africans here in the United States. And then you have what is called self-reparations. And this is what Pan-Africanism is. It is self-reparations. And it exists whether the United States gives African Americans their due or not. We continue. Dr. Peter Olasanwuche Esadebi identifies these core principles of Pan-Africanism. And he states that Africa, as he outlines them, one as Africa as the homeland of Africans and persons of African origin. Secondly, solidarity among African people and people of African descent. 3, the belief in a distinct African personality. 4, the rehabilitation of Africa's past in terms, and that's more of the scholastic and setting the history right. And what I have highlighted here in red, which is very important, which we'll get to later on in our discussion, is pride in African culture. Then we go to Africa for the Africans in church and state, and not church meaning literal church in terms of Christianity, but in terms of the religious and spiritual outlook, as well as the political aspects, the political as represented by the state. And lastly, the hope for a united and glorious future Africa, aka United States of Africa. And this is from the book Pan-Africanism, The Idea and Movement, 1776-1991, the second edition. And so lastly, we come into the actual definition, or let me just say a working definition, because there is no agreed upon final definition of Pan-Africanism, and that's because of its evolutions over the past 100 plus years and the many contributions and things of this nature. So this is a working definition as given to us by Dr. Raylan Rabaka in the text which he edited, the Routledge Handbook of Pan-Africanism, page 8. And so Pan-Africanism, according to our working definition, is a simultaneously intellectual, cultural, social, political, economic, and artistic project that calls for the unification and liberation of all people of African ancestry, both on the African continent and in the diaspora. And so when we're asking the question in terms of what strategies, or more specifically, one of our questions in terms of provide some examples, you would have to provide examples in each and or one or more of these particular areas in terms of intellectual, cultural, social, political, economic, and artistic. And so some areas are more successful currently than others, and we'll get into that later. But this is the working definition that we will have on Pan-Africanism. And so I'm not sure how much time I have left.
Oh, you're up. You're up. You
Okay.
actually right on time. We started at 8:11 and we finished at 8:21. So you were right on time, brother.
I ended my section there too.
Yeah, but thank you for that. You know, it was a really good like you said, just a really good overview of like what Pan-Africanism is. You said, well, that includes reparation. You were saying that it's, these different core, components or core elements of Pan-Africanism, and economics is one of them, and so you said it includes it. All right. And so brother Lord Abba or brother BTP Ali, you're up next, so again, which strategy is best, Pan-Africanism or good old American politics?
Let me applaud, brother. I gotta applaud the brother for giving a good presentation on Pan-Africanism and Pan-Africanist history. It doesn't address the question. It didn't address the question at all. American politics has always been the prime mover of things American. Legislation in the United States of America has never been moved by Pan-Africanism. There, unfortunately, have been other groups like Zionism who have been able to get some legislation moved through AIPAC, et cetera, on behalf of Jews in Israel. But that's white supremacy's little brother, right? So I'm gonna let my brother Ali go in, and before you come in, I want to say this is a political fight that's going on, and a lot of people do not understand. They think that we're banging on Africans and Pan-Africanism. The diaspora wars are going on Clubhouse right now because a bunch of the Africans, they're haters. Like, we just got to call it for what it is. We talk about this kumbaya, love and peace thing. We're one. Them people do not like us. And they're on Clubhouse. I was just listening to it about 20 minutes before I jumped on here. This is a political fight between operatives of Narcan and Cobra, who is in bed with the Democratic Party, who have shills like Roland Martin and Dr. Craig Carr. And a lot of people really don't understand what's going on with this thing. So I'm gonna let my brother Ali go in and address the question and some of Asar Imhotep's points.
Peace. Well, let me just say this from the gate. I don't have a problem with Pan-Africanism. The working definition that you gave, any of the other definitions that other people give that have morphed over time, in terms of all of the things that people of the diaspora are going through. So the meaning of the term Pan-Africanism obviously is going to have to change to conform to what it is that needs to be addressed in the diaspora. So I don't have a problem with that at all, just so we understand it. And I'm really glad that you said that there's no consensus on the actual meaning of the term. There's no one single thing that it means, right? So it has multiple meanings. And the reason I think that's important is because one of the things that we are continuously accused of is not understanding what Pan-Africanism is. But the definition that you gave, the working definition of it, is an excellent definition. To me, it explains it succinctly. I don't see any other understanding that needs to be had about what it means, right? It's pretty clear. The unification of the people, intellectually, politically, socially, whatever other culturally, other kind of ways that there can be. Artistically, I get it, right? The unification of Black people across the diaspora, for whatever reasons they need to be unified. It's simple. So at the end of the day, the problem with that is there's never really been that kind of a unification. That's one of the things that we continue to point out to people. I want it to be, I would love for it to be, right? This is idealistic. I would love for the African Union to be something that has power. I would love for Pan-Africanism to be an actualized thing that can do something for us here in this country. I would love for that to be the case. Problem is that hasn't been the case. That's just the reality. And what I mean by that in terms of in terms of securing reparations for the descendants of freedmen, Pan-Africanism has no effect there. Now, I'm not going to say that members of NARC, Queen Mother Moore, other people didn't have some kind of Afrocentric Pan-Africanist leanings, because if they did, they did. That was on them. That's their personal thing, and that's fine. The question is, Pan-Africanism as the unification of Black people in the diaspora, has that secure for the descendants of American freedmen the reparative justice that they've been seeking since Callie House and before? Has that been the case? And the obvious, honest answer is no, right? It hasn't secured anything for us, because the fact of the matter is the United States is a sovereign, independent nation, a sovereign power, a world superpower. No African nation can force it to do anything. I don't even think there's any African nations that's interested in forcing the United States to do anything. If they are, I've never read about it or heard about it. Especially for us. Nobody, this is a thing people got to understand. We're in this by ourselves, for the most part. Nobody's rocking with us like that. Excuse my French, nobody's fucking with us like that. We got to keep it 100. All of the fights that we've had, even though we've had other people that will rock out with us at certain instances, like, I'm from New York City, so I've been to different marches, rallies, demonstrations, all that kind of stuff here, and I'll see different people, particularly Caribbean people. Oftentimes, people of the African continent stay away from our things. We got to be honest about that. They stay away from our stuff. And like the brother's saying, they're on Clubhouse going in on each other. The South Africans versus the Nigerians, etc. Right? So they're not unified there. If this thing is really about unification, if that's the main thing, whatever kind of unification you're talking about, intellectual, political, whatever, if unification is the core element of Pan-Africanism, then that's just an idea. And it's an ideal that I think is dope, but it's not real. So when it comes to American politics, when it came to the Civil War, the politics of Negro chattel slavery, American blacks fought in that war by themselves for their own liberation. I'm not saying it wasn't white people, but I'm saying in terms of other black people, Native Black Americans fought for their own liberation. Nobody helped us during the Civil War. Our people were emancipated into poverty, homelessness, and terrorism. Nobody from nowhere else came to help us do nothing. They didn't help us get through that. We got through it whatever way we could. Our grandparents and great-grandparents came through that whatever way they could. They, like how they say, we made a way out of no way. That's our people. We make a way out of no way. And everybody else follows us. They follow us. Now, we lend support to people like we lend support to the South Africans when they were going through apartheid. Our people were very supportive. But I remember how the 80s looked with all of the musicians. I'm not going to play Sun City. I remember all of that stuff. But the South Africans have never done anything for us here. And one of the main reasons they haven't, because they can't. Nobody can force the United States. Remember, the United States is a world superpower. Can't nobody force the United States to do a damn thing. Nobody. So whatever gains we get here, and reparations is in fact a political issue. Every reparation suit that came before any federal court was dismissed, not only for lack of standing, but for the simple fact, or lack of standing, or some kind of, they'll try to say like statute of limitations. There's no statute of limitations on it, but that's just BS talk. But the fact of the matter is, reparations for Negro chattel slavery and Jim Crowism raises such a political question that the federal courts can't deal with it. That means that the executive and legislative branches of government have to deal with that issue because it's so comprehensive and so much to deal with. It would have to be done through an act of legislation. And legislation in this country and policy in this country is dictated by the civic activity and engagement of the citizens of this country, which we are. A lot of people of Afrocentric mentality feel like Native Black Americans aren't really citizens. If that's BS, we have just as much right and more so right to citizenship in this country than any other white immigrant who comes here and tells us to go back to Africa. Because you gotta understand something, most of the white people that tell us to go back to Africa of immigrant descent, Johnny-come-latelys, who don't have the history and lineage in this country that our people do. We foundational, like the brother Nasheed says. I agree with him 100%. We're foundational to this thing called the United States of America. We was here before it was established. We helped them establish it, fighting alongside the Patriots. We helped to save the Union and fought for our liberation during the Civil War and every other war since. This is our country just as much as anybody else's. When they said the Declaration of Independence, all men are created equal, they say all white men. It says all men. And understand something. There were debates surrounding that, whether they want to put white in there or not. All white men are created equal. They wanted to do it. Some of the southern states wanted to put that in the Declaration of Independence, but it got shot down in the debates in the Continental Congress. No, all men are created equal, and governments are instituted to protect the rights of men. That was the purpose of instituting governments, but they didn't do that for our people. So our people's plight has been freedom fighting the whole time. That's been our plight. And the fact of the matter is, whatever advancements that we got, 1866 Civil Rights Act, the Reconstruction Amendments, whatever the case is, the Civil Rights Acts of the 60s, whatever it is that we got that through our fights and our struggles here as citizens and taxpayers of the United States. You don't have to like it. You don't have to like it, but you live here. And everybody that says that they're Africans, that live here, why are you still here? I don't have a problem with you calling yourself African, but don't try to put other people down, especially us, when we're trying to tell you that we're actually American citizens and we have just as much a right and more so to claim American citizenship than any white immigrant that comes here talking crap to us. Don't try to put us down because we rocking that American flag. That's our flag. And Pan-Africanism hasn't helped us. I'll stop there.
Beautiful. I mean, you were right on time. I mean, you are good, because Lord Abba handed you the mic at 8:23 and it's 8:34. So you all are good.
I hope when it's my turn to speak, I don't be the one that talk over the time limit.
Oh, so I thought you were giving him the time. Oh no, you were passing the first question to him, right?
Yeah, I was just passing it. Let my boy go in.
Yeah,
my brothers are sharp, man.
Yeah, I can hear it.
Last one of them.
I can hear it. So he was basically, he was going in. He was going in, brother Asar, and him there, yeah. So we're going to move to the second question. So, all right. So brother Asar says Pan-Africanism is the best strategy. And so now, okay, the second question is, well, how do you implement these strategies? So we're going to move into the second question. Brother Asar Imhotep, you have the floor.
Am I unmuted? All right. Yeah. Again, reparations is built into the Pan-African movement. And so to act, that's why I cited what I cited, to act like it was like there's a dichotomy is strange. And so like, we got to understand, when we're talking about reparations, you're talking about the repairing of a people. But what is the nature, the full scope of the injury? Is it just simply that we were slaved or enslaved and we should get some monetary back? But what happened in that process? What about the psychological issues? What about the health issues and a whole bunch of other things? You have to address that. And so this is why I stated yes and no when it came to the question, because you have a part of reparations that can be resolved as a result of the United States giving us what is due, for the injury that they caused, our people. But then you also have self-reparations. So it's just like if a woman was in a abusive relationship, right? If she would get reparations in part one by dude going to jail, getting his ass beat by the family, you know, paying her, you know, for you know, any kind of medical injuries, and of course apologizing and doing the like. Hello?
We're here. Keep going, brother. So we hear you.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought I dropped out for some reason.
No,
All
no,
right.
you're good.
So these are ways in which, you know, help the repair process of the woman who has been abused. But that abuse did something to her. It wasn't just simply the physical injuries. It's not just the medical bills that accumulate, that can be paid with money, so she doesn't, you know, have to deal with that extra unintended cost of being in a relationship with old dude. There's a psychological aspect of this that has to be repaired, which he can't do. She's going to have to do the work, to go through therapy, to do whatever rituals and exercises are prescribed in that process to restore her sense of wholeness and health. She's going to have to do certain things in terms of her diet, in terms of exercise, in terms of meditation, in terms of, you know, whatever her religious background is, tapping into that to make herself whole. And so there's always a self-reparative part. Now, whether the man apologizes, pays for her medical bills, go to jail, gets beat up by the family or whatnot, regardless if any of that happens, she still has to do the work in order to repair. And this is where, using this as a metaphor, where Pan-Africanism comes in. It's a self-reparative strategy. And so that's why when I named those areas, that's why it was important to read them off. And let me just go back on my screen real quick. In terms of the definition, talking about intellectual, cultural, social, political, economic, and artistic. And so all of these different things have to be addressed. And some of those things cannot be addressed by reparations from the United States. You're still going to have to do with your own intellectual development and capacity. But that can be enhanced, for example, like what was requested at the first Pan-African conference in terms of free education for those of us descended from the descendants of Africans in the United States. That will enhance and help to play the favor. But regardless if they give us free education or not, we're still responsible for our own intellectual development. So part of the strategies is part of that focus of Pan-Africanism is to develop our own schools, to develop our own curricula. In this day and age, we can develop online schools, to develop our own printing houses and to publish our own text, to learn as much as we can and bring it back to our people in digestible forms. That happens with or without Europeans giving us reparations here in the United States, which we've been doing. The cultural aspect. There's a reason why I changed my name on my screen to Ifa Muyiwa Fagbimi. That's my Yoruba initiation name. It is a tapping back into our ancestral culture, back to the religion of our ancestors, and bringing it forward and modern and adjusting it for what we need here in the West. Imhotep is my other initiation name as well, but I wanted to do that one specifically. So when it comes to the social aspect, of this. The political's already built in. So if you're here in the United States, the question of achieving certain ends by way of politics, that's already built in to Pan-Africanism. So that's why I'm saying this conversation is not the initial question is not a serious question based upon knowledge of what Pan-Africanism is. And so when we're talking about the economic and artistic, all of this stuff has nothing to do with the United States, paying us for the injury in whatever form the paying is of the injury in which they caused. We have to do our own self-reparations, regardless of what is going on in this particular arena. So you have two aspects of this process. And so what is very limiting in this conscious community is that for some reason we can't walk and chew gum at the same time. We can't have a group of people over here working on reparations and then a group of people over here working on Pan-Africanism and a group of people over here working on trade and economics and a group of people over here working on education and curriculum and a group of people over here working on medicine and all this other kind of stuff. It got to be one thing, one strategy, and one group got to be to do it, all the time. And this is just behooves me of this particular of movement or lack of movement in the conscious community, and why education is so important. You can walk and chew gum at the very same time. Not everybody is going to be on board. And if we are at war, there's going to be casualties anyway. So it is what it is. And so if your focus is reparations from the United States, let that be your fight. But if you have a group of people over here looking at a bigger long-term strategy, and they're saying that, we are weaker when we are divided in terms of the diaspora. We need to connect our resources, develop a particular type of uniting culture and signifying languages and things of this nature. And I have slides for that, but I'll digress for that unless we need it later, because that was the whole focus of Cheikh Anta Diop's economic and cultural basis, Black Africa, an economic and cultural basis for a federated state in the blueprint for Black power and the destruction of civilizations, all these with the plans in them. So the brother held up the book. In the back of starting on page 88, you have the 14 is actually 15 steps, of African unity. It gives out a plan and steps and stuff that needs to be achieved. That's all I have to cite in terms of what are the strategies. The strategies are already designed. It's in the books. The destruction of Black civilization, blueprint for Black power, Black Africa, an economic and cultural basis for a federated state. And so these things are being achieved. The political, the larger state aspect, that's taken a little longer, but there's a reason for that. And we understand that being historians of history and how young these African states are and just how many people are in Africa. People think Africa is like the size of Jamaica or something that you could just get a whole bunch of people together and they all be united. No. The United States itself can fit into the Sahara itself. This is how big this place is. So it's going to take a little time, and which is why it's interesting that, one should not look into Pan-Africanism because its highest ideals have not been achieved yet, but we're supposed to lean towards reparations, which hasn't been achieved by any means at all here in the United States. These are both organic and living movements that are realizing their goals daily. And some goals take longer than others. And so just because something hasn't been achieved yet over here doesn't mean there hasn't been progress there. Just because reparations hasn't been achieved here in the United States doesn't mean that there hasn't been progress. And so we have to recognize that in the times we're in and just be realistic about the conversation we're having. And I'll stop there.
All right, brother Asar, thank you. Thank you so much for that. So I'm getting ready to pass the mic to either BTP Ali or my good brother, Lord Abba. You know, what is the best, and not what is the best strategy? What was the second question? I'm sorry. How do you implement the strategy? All right, so you're saying we need to exercise good old American politics. So what's the strategy behind that, King?
I got so much. I really want my brother Ali to go in, but I want to do this real quick. Can you pull my screen up, sis?
I sure can.
Because brother Asar Imhotep said reparations hasn't been achieved. You know, you got to be specific. You got to be specific. But reparations has actually been achieved. And this is the historical timeline of reparations payments made from 1783 through 2021 by the United States government, states, cities, religious institutions, universities, corporations, and communities. And it gives you the starting point, you know, today. And then if you scroll, you're going to get through all of these different people who have received reparations, right? From the federal government. At the state level, you have Black Americans who have actually received reparations. Now, there was an act called I brought this up last week, the Civil Liberties Act of 1988, which paid the United States, paid the Japanese Americans.
And the Aleutians.
And
the people of the islands.
That's right. People forget about them. Paid them for the internment during World War II, etc. Now, so reparations can be done. It's just that we have an issue. And when we close out, I'm going to speak to that. But the three areas that we call ARC is basically it's basically how we get to the implementation process. Acknowledgement, redress, and closure, right? So the first thing is that we get the United States of America to acknowledge the fact that we went through slavery, we then suffered horrifically through Jim Crow, segregation, redlining, and all of the offspring, the progeny of the slave institutions, right? We're reading this book right here. I told you all to get it. This is one of the ways that we are putting a strategy together by asking at least 22% of our people to move from the north back down to the south so that we can have numerical majorities in these southern states. With this, we would have control of at least 12 Senate seats. This plan is, in fact, a doable plan, as many people are moving from the north back south anyway. I'm from the north, New York, and I live in the south right now. And I don't say that anecdotally. I say that because it's just a fact. It is the reason why Georgia flipped the blue. But I'll save that for the proof of works in the last question. We have a plan. We have a plan, and we basically just laid it out. I'm trying to, stay within the time constraints, but how do you implement it? We implement it by becoming politically active. It's the one thing that we are not collectively as a people. We're not politically active. We have a lot of different people saying a whole lot of different stuff, and 9.9 times out of 10, they're wrong about it because they don't know how to do politics. They're scared of it. They're afraid of it. It becomes, after a while, an albatross that they feel that they cannot lug across them. Across the highway of liberation. And our leg muscles is built for it, because I want you all to think about it. Me and my brother Ali, we come out of not just the Moorish school of thought. We studied Nuwapu, the Ansars under Dr. York. We studied the teachings of the Nation of Islam, 5%, and yet we have arrived to a point of reason. We are at a point of reason right now that everything that we have is merely knowledge. Implementation of it is weird. There's no such thing. No, let me not say there's no such thing as self-reparations. I want to read something real quick, and I'm a pass it to my brother Ali so he can finish it off. This is from my brother Logic, BTP Logic. He says, nobody is saying that we don't have individual work to put into our healing. However, that does not in any way take away the responsibility that the victimizer has in repairing the damage that they cause to the utmost of their ability. After a doctor operates on you, you still have to do your own exercising and physical therapy, but that doesn't mean the doctor should not operate. The United States of America owes us. And I don't want to say there's no such thing as self-reparations, because that there is. But in the context of government, there's no such thing as self-reparations. The Japanese Americans and the whole list of people that I just pulled up disproves that. I'm going to pass it to my brother Ali.
Peace. All right. So what? Let me do this. I want to share my screen real quick because I want people to see the definition of the word reparation. Right? And brother Asar mentioned it. We talk about it, but I want people to see it for themselves. Let me know if you can see this.
It's up.
It's up. All right. So look, the word reparation, according to Google, and Google uses Oxford as its source, so don't think this is just some BS definition. Reparation, the making of amends for a wrong one has done by paying money to or otherwise helping those who have been wronged. And they give an example, and this example is important. The courts required a convicted offender to make financial reparation to his victim. Similar words or synonyms are amends, restitution, redress, compensation, recompense. When we're talking about reparations for the descendants of the people who were forced to bear the burdens of Negro chattel slavery in this country, when we're talking about reparations for the people who were emancipated into poverty and homelessness and terrorism, and those who had to face Jim Crowism in all the forms that it came in, racial oppression, public subjugation, housing discrimination, gerrymandering, redlining, racial gerrymandering, prison those who were forced to deal with all of those things. When we're talking about that and what it has done, specifically, we're talking in this instance about the economic gap that it has caused and the economic damage. So in essence, what we're looking for from the United States government is economic justice to repair the economic damage that they've caused, right? And to do that is going to take civic engagement. It's going to take engagement from us as citizens of the United States, not us as members of the African diaspora, but us as citizens and members of this thing called the United States of America, right? It's a part of the constitutional guarantee that the citizens of the United States have the right to petition the government that they pay taxes to for redress of their specific grievances. And I think that what a lot of people need to really pay attention to is the way Professor Darity has laid this thing out from the economic perspective. The United States, I would never look to for any kind of psychological therapy or any of that kind of stuff that needs to be done with our people as a group to try to overcome a lot of the damage that was done mentally, psychologically, spiritually, and everything else. The United States is not a church. The United States is not, a psychoanalyst, right? So I'm not looking to them for that. So we're looking to the United States to repair the economic damage and to afford us the economic justice that is due to us and has been due to us since emancipation. That's what we're talking about. Dealing with the definition of reparation in terms of recompense, compensation, to right that particular wrong, which they, as this particular body politic, had been charged with doing, which is to protect the rights of all men. They didn't do that. They didn't do that. So that's what we're talking about, right? We're talking about our rights that were violated and the damage that was caused that we can measure right? And something that they can address, which is the economic damage. So for the Pan-Africanists who are looking for spiritual therapy, who are looking for psychotherapy, who are looking for religious therapy, those are things you're going to have to get outside of the reparations movement for justice in the United States, which is really a political and economic one. We're looking for policy prescriptions. We're looking for legislation that's going to deal with this economic wealth gap, where 90-something% of the wealth in this country has been consolidated with white people, where black people possess somewhere around 3%, maybe a little bit more of the nation's wealth, even though we're 14% of the population. So that kind of disparity is the thing that this country needs to address, and it's something that they can address. They can't address all of the self-repair things that you're talking about. Self-repair is self-repair. So I don't know why it would be a part of a reparations claim for justice with the United States if it's something that you are supposed to be doing yourself. I don't understand why it's getting mixed like that. Right, and it's being used as it's being almost weaponized in a certain way that you guys are idiots and you're uneducated in the ways of self-repair and religious repair and spiritual repair. That if that's something that you're supposed to do on your own time, fine, you do that, but don't act like that's a part of an economic, political agenda for citizens in this country who are dealing with a wealth disparity. That's what we're talking about dealing with. That's what we're talking about dealing with. So I'll leave it right there.
Was that the time? I would definitely want to make one more closing.
Go ahead and make a closing mark, because I was waiting for you all to say, what's the strategy? Because we said, how do you implement the strategy? Mm-hmm. So okay, so we said good old American politics. What should we do? And I know, Lord Abba, you talked about black people going to different southern states and voting. So get into the strategy. How do we implement? You said we need to utilize American politics to achieve reparations. Okay, so what's the strategy that we need to implement?
All right.
Did I miss it?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
Let me say, right, in a capitalist society, actual capital is the most important aspect of the society. The monetary component of reparations is an utmost necessity. Self-repair can actually be achieved with monetary compensation. Our people, for instance, can't afford to just go get therapy sessions because we are a wealthless group in the United States of America. The concerns of psychological damage and other effects of the historical atrocities that our people have suffered, that we basically have inherited and going to pass down to our progeny, it can be accessible if we have the capital to address it. That's what we're fighting for. When it comes to economic exclusion and being locked out of capital in this country, that should be a no-brainer. That actual capital is paramount to the beginning of repairing the damage that both government and private institutions in the United States of America not only sanctioned, but caused. So I just wanted to say that. I get Brother Asar Imhotep can get into the strategy part of it. It seemed like we kind of blended the two in our last responses, but we'll go in a little bit more. I'll touch on some things.
All right, brother Lord Abba. Okay, so Brother Asar Imhotep, did you want to further, discuss this second question? How do you implement, I guess, the Pan-Africanism strategy, or do you want to move to the next question? You want to further expound on it, Brother Asar? I think.
I'm sorry.
Okay, there you go.
Is my mic? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to expand on that. Okay. Because I wanted to address something specifically that Brother Abba said, and so let me know. I'm sharing my screen, so I guess you gotta.
It looks good. It is one of my favorite books that you have on the screen, actually.
So you already know who I'm coming with. This is Dr.
Yeah.
The Falsification of African Consciousness, Eurocentric History, Psychiatry, and the Politics of White Supremacy. So this is something that we keep forgetting. So remember, when we're talking about Pan-Africanism, the cultural aspect and the social aspect are two components of the definition. So on page 44 of Wilson's work, he says something that is critical to this conversation, which a lot of people seem to miss. He states, starting, we're suffering from the absence of an economic system. Money is not a system. Money is what it is. A system involves the systematic and organized utilization of money, a systematized utilization and distribution of money. Without the pattern, without the system, without the organization, one does not have an economy. An economy exists prior to money. There were economies in the world before money was invented. We don't even have to have money to have an economized system. So ultimately, when we study an economic system, we recognize that an economic system at its base refers to the nature of what? The relationship between people. It's the systematic way people choose to relate one to another that makes an economic system, not money. We lack a systematic way of relating to each other, then we have, when we lack a systematic way of relating to each other, then we can have money and still be poor, have money and be robbed, which we are. Pan-Africanism addresses this aspect of economics. The unification is part of the relating process, which is why this individual and person is so important to this conversation. And the book that I mentioned, everyone knows Cheikh Anta Diop for doing work on Egyptology and in linguistics and stuff to this nature. The reason why he was doing that was so that he could convince the people on the ground that they have a common heritage, so that they have a cultural basis for a political state. And so this is something that is given, for example, the late Jordan Ngubani of South Africa in his text, Conflicts of Minds. He states on page 90, simultaneous validity was given added significance when I traveled in West Africa. Remember, he's a Zulu from South Africa. In 1958 in the United States in 1969. I discovered that the West Africans saw reality from perspectives I had, in my ignorance, regarded as peculiar to the Ubuntu teaching in my part of the continent. I was pleasantly surprised to discover that the common factor in Southern and Western African experiences was our evaluation of the person, which gave identical rhythms to our different cultural experiences. I'll stop sharing now. The important part of this aspect of the discussion is that the people on the ground don't know the commonalities that they have with people across the continent because they don't travel. And that's one of the things that Cheikh Anta Diop was talking about in Black Africa, is that there's no inter-African tourism. If the Africans understood their relationship to history and their commonalities in language and culture, they have a basis to do economics with each other, because the relationships are what establishes an economy. It's not the money. That is what allows for us to exchange the goods and services that we have, but it's ultimately on the relationships. So when African scholars are studying, saying like, hey, wait a minute, these guys are similar to these guys over here, and this, and this is where the whole Pan-Africanist idea comes from, understanding the commonalities between these African groups. And if you can get them to understand not only their shared cultural and linguistic and historical experiences, You give them a basis to do business with each other, because Pan-Africanism is a defense against the powers. Because if you value the goods and services of other folks, no matter how much money you get, you're just going to give the money and give the resources back to the others in the first place. So you have to have a foundation where you value yourself and your people and your culture, which is why I cited at the beginning to have a love and an appreciation for African people. If you don't love African people, you won't be able to do business. That's where all the resources are. You want to start in building cell phones? Where are you going to get the cobalt? Where are you going to get these resources? The stuff is in Africa. Everybody's going to Africa except Africans in the diaspora. And so regardless if the Europeans in the United States give us reparations or not, we still have work to do. And you have to do it within some kind of theoretical framework. And Pan-Africanism is one such framework to achieve specific type of goals. So part of that strategy is getting to learn about each other, deal with each other, visit each other. You have a new name, Dr. Maat. Why? Where did you have to do to go get that new name? Where did you go? You went to the continent and dealt with the people there and established relationships. I just got off the phone a little while ago from a brother who lives in Paris, who's from the Congo. We're going to be working together to start tourism from the diaspora of the United States into the Congo. There's already African student universities in South Africa. There's AI, international, that's in Brazil, that's in France, that's in London, of course, in the United States and all that. You have all of these different organizations already there working, building relationships, starting the economic process, sharing our stories and experiences, and exchanging money with each other. It's already happening. We don't have to, it's not a theory. This is stuff that we do and I do every single day. People are building schools in Africa. People like Professor Smalls would now with their hotels, hiring and doing things in Africa. People are even moving to Africa, setting up business and stuff like this, and still keeping a connection here in the United States.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I hear. Hold on. BTP, look. We're going to have a rebuttal round. Just can you write it down what your question is? Because we're going to have a rebuttal round where you get to ask Brother Asar questions, and go ahead, finish your time, Brother Asar, because you only have like a couple of minutes left. Go ahead and finish, King. You finish?
I'm good.
All right. Well, we can. I know that you used your time to like address, I guess, what was said, and to further expound on the Let me go back to it. How or what implementations, how to implement the strategy. Brother BTP Ali and Brother Lord Abba, do you all want to, expound on what you said, regarding the implementation of the strategy, or do you want to move to the last question?
Well, we could move to the last question, but I just want to read something because Brother Asar Imhotep, he pulled up a lot of people. Many of them were Africans, non-Americans, not invested in the political fight of the descendants of freedmen here in the United States. So I would like to just pull up an actual American, right, from here to Aqua. I would like to just read this real quick, just a little opening from Dr. Sandy Darity and A. Kirsten Mullins. It says, because this is the topic tonight,
that's
racism
right.
and discrimination have choked economic opportunity for African Americans at nearly every turn. At several historic moments, the trajectory of racial inequality could have been altered dramatically. Perhaps no moment was more opportune than the early days of Reconstruction, when the U.S. government temporarily implemented a major redistribution of land from former slaveholders to the newly emancipated enslaved. But neither Reconstruction nor the New Deal nor the civil rights struggle led to an economically just and fair nation. Today, systemic inequality persists in the form of housing discrimination, unequal education, police brutality, mass incarceration, employment discrimination, and massive wealth and opportunity gaps. Economic data indicates that for every dollar the average white household has in wealth, the average black household possesses a mere 10 cents. I applaud Asar Imhotep and those who study Pan-Africanism and can quote their scholastic heroes. I can quote some Pan-Africanists myself. I can quote some Islamic scholars. I can quote some stuff. But on this topic of reparations, we must deal with the subject matter. How can we get the economic inclusion that the United States of America boxed us out of, that comes by way of reparations? With all due respect, nothing that our opponent on this particular topic tonight has said has proven what Pan-Africanism can do. He talked about opening schools in Africa and investments. I believe, he alluded to investing over there when we're broken over here. For every one of us that leaves from here and go over there, that's one less ballot that we would cast for someone like myself, Ali, even you, Dr. Maat, or even Brother Asar Imhotep, because that's the reality of the situation, is that we can be all of this stuff, all of it. But here in the United States of America, we have a fight going on. And by the year 2053, the median black worth right now is at $1,700 without durable goods, meaning depreciating assets. By 2053, the median wealth, that $1,700, is going to dip to zero. That means our grandchildren will not be able to afford to live in this place. I see no path in anything that any of our Pan-Africanists have said, any of the proponents of Pan-Africanism has said, that moves us to greater economic inclusion. Now, I'm going to end on this and pass it to Brother Ali. He spoke to the diamonds and the gold. Basically, it's a lot of precious minerals in Africa, palladium, platinum, et cetera, but it's being raped by other nations. And the people that are lifting the skirt of Mother Africa are its rulers, who are Africans themselves. Like, we have repair to do here, and there's repair to do there. We can't Wakanda-ize and Zamunda-ize this thing. Like, this is the reality of the situation. That's why I keep these backgrounds up, Sister Maat, as a reminder of our plight. That represents us right there. You got it, Brother Ali.
Hold up. I gotta say something. Hold on one second. Hold on. It's warming up in here, family. You hear the brothers. Man, I'm over here. I'm so intellectually stimulated. It's ridiculous. Like, I'm just sitting back, listening to Brother Asar Imhotep, listening to Brother BTP Ali, and my brother Lord Abba. My sister had to correct you. The sisters are in the building. They said it's doctor. You see the sister?
What did I say?
I think he said sister or miss or something like that. But look, my sisters are like, remember the movie Wakanda? Remember the movie Wakanda? And you had the sisters with the bald head and the spears.
Yeah, I got that movie.
I got like 20 of them in the building right now.
I know Sister Riziki. I know me and Sister Riziki cool. We was gonna do some little community work together.
Yeah, that's my girl.
That's Moors was hating on me.
Yeah, that's my girl. Shout out to Sister Riziki. That's my heart right there.
Somebody said I'm appealing to
2014.
All right,
don't worry about that. No, Lord Abba. No. Don't give that. Yeah, don't give that no energy. Brother Ali, did you want to move to examples of success, brother?
Well, Yeah, let me just say this. The reason I wanted to show the definition of reparations and the example they gave, where it was a court basically dealing with a court matter. Reparations is something that can be achieved by way of the legislature, the executive branch, as well as the judiciary, and that has been the case multiple instances. Even when people win civil suits, like for instance, George Floyd's family just won a $27 million suit, right? And they're winning the suit based on the racial injustice that they had to deal with by losing their family member to a state operative, and the injury that is going to cause the lifelong injury. And so the only thing that they can do is try to address it financially, right? With restitution, some kind of compensation, reparation. We know that these words are all synonymous. So reparations has been done through the courts. Reparations has been done by way of city ordinances. There was a group of African American men who had been subjected to terrorism by the Chicago Police Department for a number of years. The city of Chicago's city council passed what they called a reparations ordinance, where they actually ordered the paying of compensation to the African American victims of racial terrorism by way of the Chicago Police Department. Rosewood, and we're not even talking about dollar amounts. The whole thing is whether or not reparations can be done without Pan-Africanism. And the actual emphatic fact is yes, because it already has been in the United States. That's the thing that, so just to answer this whole thing in a nutshell, it's not really yes or no. The truth of the matter is yes, because it already has been done multiple instances. Reparation is the repairing of something where a wrong was done, and money is paid as a form of repair. Not saying that it's going to fix everything, but it's something that they can do, which is to offer money, whether that's a civil settlement, whether that is something that comes by way of an ordinance in the city, legislation from the state, or legislation from the federal government, as they did with the Japanese Americans and the Aleutians in terms of what happened to them during World War II. So on every level of government, city, state, federal, reparations has been done. Pan-Africanism had nothing to do with it. Absolutely nothing to do with it. Had everything to do with people getting justice for the wrongs that was done. Period. Can it be done? Yes, it already has been. It's a simple answer. It's really not even anything to dance around with, right? And the other thing I wanted to touch on, when our good brother was talking about all of these investments in Africa, which is fine. If that's what someone wants to do, invest in Africa, that's fine. You can invest in schools over there. You can invest in hotels over there, whatever it is you want to do. The question that I often have to ask, though, is how many Black-owned American businesses does the African nations, or do the African nations invest in? I'm a Black-owned business owner, right? I have my own business. Where's the fund for Native Black Americans coming from the African nations? These are sovereign, independent, allegedly sovereign, independent nations over there in Africa, right? Have their own economies. Where is our assistance? From the time that our people were emancipated till this day, there's never been any kind of investment from Africa in us, right? We're the lost sons and daughters of Africa, right? We're the ones that's lost. Why is everybody looking to us to invest in that entire continent? That's a big ass continent, like you said, 50-something nations, right? It's a big continent with sovereign states, economies, militaries, police forces, all kinds of things. But we have to invest in them. People expecting us to invest in them. Where is the African investment in African Americans? They're the ones with the standing armies. We're just citizens. We're just taxpaying citizens over here with a plight that we're trying to overcome.
Ooh.
So, I'm just saying, like, it sounds good, right? All of this stuff sounds good, and we've heard it a million times. It's not like anything that brother is saying is new. We've heard this stuff a million times. We got to invest. We got to do this. We can go over to Africa. People don't travel, and because they don't travel, they don't understand. Listen, all of that, right? Fine. Our people right here have homes, we have businesses, we have all kinds of things. Nobody invests in our stuff. Even when let me tell you something, I'm in Harlem. There's a bunch of Africans that come right into the middle of our communities, African American or Native Black American communities, come here, set up shop right down 116th Street between Lenox and 7th. That whole street, the African martyrs, right across the street from the mosque where Malcolm X used to preach on 116th Street, the African marketplace right there. You know what Black Americans do? They go into the African marketplace and they support those people. You know what African Americans do? All of the hair braiding shops on 116th, up there on 125th Street, right? Down 7th Avenue, down 8th Avenue. You know what the African Americans do? They go in there and they get their hair braided. So they support those people. They support them. But there's no investment from Africa into our businesses, and it never has been. And that's something that Pan-Africanists in America need to address. Y'all need to be talking to them about investing in our people over here. We're the lost ones. We're the descendants of the people who got kicked out of there. You understand? Invest in us. Where's that at? But see, I'm just saying, because it always comes off as some kind of a chastisement. Like, you people are you're so slow and you don't travel enough, so you don't understand what you're supposed to be doing. Where's the chastisement for them?
Ooh, hold on.
I'm just saying. And
I'm just saying, I love the brother. Let me tell you something. I use his work from academia.edu. His works on the determinatives and the glyphs and all. Listen, that brother's dope. That brother's dope, but we're talking about something else. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Implementation.
I had to put up this
quote. How you implement it.
Look, I had to put up this quote, brother FBA Nigel. He said when Dr. Maat went to Elmina slave castles, they was busy selling her stuff. He ain't lying.
Yo, what? They was bootlegging and stuff?
No, he was.
Yo, what?
Oh, he telling the truth. Brother FBA Nigel, stop. Brother Asar Imhotep. Go ahead, brother Asar Imhotep. You're up. Go ahead, brother, and give us some examples of success.
You
brother.
muted.
Oh,
I'm
sorry. Yeah, go ahead and give us some examples of success, brother Asar.
Yeah, we got to be careful of a lot of personal anecdotal conversation when it comes to stuff like this. Because unless you've done a systemized study of what countries or what people in Africa are doing in terms of their investments, because I've had plenty of Africans invest in me and the work that I do. So besides the scholarship, I'm a software developer. So I build apps, I build websites and stuff to this nature, and Africans have supported me. But I can't use that and say that is the case for everybody. You know, that is anecdotal. And so we got to be careful here. And it's the same thing like with Lord Abba talking about what goes on Clubhouse app. But, you know, for those of us who grew up in the 80s and early 90s, we were the ones calling them African booty scratchers and all of this other kind of dusty stuff, you know, when they came over here. I know for a fact because I've done it. And that's one of the complaints that they would have, and you know, which caused a lot of the rift between us here, is we would call them all kinds of African booty scratches and all this other kind of stuff. So they would come over here thinking that we don't like them. But that's not the case. You had a group of people who respected and adored African people, and then you have a group of people who don't. If you were African and you came into New York into Harlem, not in Harlem, you went to you was in Manhattan and you just came across the Hebrew Israelites standing on the corner and they talking about, you know, how bad Africans are and that they're dirty and all this other kind of stuff. You don't know, you can't separate the Hebrew Israelites in ISUPK from, you know, this other group over here or whatnot. You thinking that's all the African Americans and they just think that we shit, you know. So we got to be careful in how we are approaching these particular conversations. And so, like, when we're talking about strategies and things of this nature, again, as I stated from the beginning, certain things have more success in the larger project than others. So when it comes to the cultural and political and social stuff, we can give examples of Pan-Africanism working all day. But in terms of a unification of states, that hasn't happened yet. You know, but you can see, for example, like with the East African bloc, they've already come together on that. They haven't come together to make political states, but they've come together with an East African treaty in terms of economics and things of that nature. So that's one thing. And for example, part of the Pan-African project is the development or the usage of a single African language. And the proposal, the most successful, has been Kiswahili. And there's a number of African continents where Kiswahili is the national language, you know, now. And so, you know, you have these little successes in terms of, for example, you know, part of the of the Pan-African project is the theory of Afrocentricity. Afrocentricity has went around the world and they've developed, for example, whole entire African American studies programs based on Afrocentricity. The field is now called Africology. So you have different Africology departments now here across the United States and in Canada. They're starting one in Brazil, and they're working on one in France right now. I know a whole university in South Africa is now fully Afrocentric. And so the ideas that have emerged out of this Pan-African conversation and movement is happening everywhere. It's slow, but there's other issues in politics and history that has to be discussed in terms of you know, we act like COINTELPRO was something that was only in the 60s and 70s. Like, that stuff exists all across the continent. They have a whole military branch that's their focus. We call them Green Berets. A Green Beret's job is to go into, with no more than 12 individuals, and destabilize governments. And so if you're going to have these conversations about what's going on and why certain things can't connect, it has to be done within context, with respect to history and knowledge of how the United States moves. And so when we have this conversation, again, it's not an issue of either or. It's both and. And no Pan-African has any problem in terms of the conversation with reparations and understands all the legal aspects of this and what that is all about. There's no debate. Nobody's arguing against that. So it's not, that's not our time. The question is, and this should have been the real question, what is the goal ultimately of reparations? Is it sovereignty? Is it liberation? Is it independence? And can you achieve that in the United States, still being governed by others? And also, what if the United States says no? What are you going to do when they say no? What's the backup plan? You got all the legal arguments ready and prepared. They just say they have the power. And they just like, no. What then? Are your goals still sovereignty, liberation, and independence? And is it your argument that you can't or can achieve that here in the United States with or without reparations? And so we're not asking the critical questions here. And this is ultimately what we're saying here. If the United States says no, who is the onus? Who is the onus for the reparations and the sanity and the economic development of African people here in the United States? And so we got to be real with this and stop throwing jargon out there. We understand all of this. But this conversation is more than over 150 years old. And so these conferences, we had 5 major Pan-African conferences. You don't think they asked these questions? All the way up to 1968. Our ancestors, our elders are not dummies. They've thought about these things. And they said, you know what? We're going to have to walk and chew gum at the same time. Some of you are going to have to focus on reparations. Some of you are going to have to focus on the redistribution and get into politics and redistribute funds so that we can do this and this in our neighborhoods. Some of you are going to have to go to school and become geniuses and invent products and services so that you can make millions of dollars and reinvest in your people and in your communities. There's multiple strategies and there's no one way, where it's all hands on deck. And you're going to have to walk and chew gum. And that's just the bottom line of it. And so reparations, as stated from the beginning, is a part of the Pan-Africanist strategy. And then for those who belong in the Caribbean and have legal issues with Britain, they're going to have to do their own reparations movement with them. Those in Nigeria and Sudan and Senegal and things of that nature, they have to deal with France and Britain and all this other kind of stuff. The people in Brazil dealing with Portugal, they have their own reparations, but all of these reparations movements are part of the Pan-Africanist strategy. But we ask the question, if they don't give reparations, what are we going to do?
All right, brother. So that is a good point, but I gotta give you the sound effect. Hold on, brother. So it's heating up in here tonight. All right, family, we're getting ready to go into the last round. Or Brother Ali, I see you unmuted your mic and you got your screen showing. Is it something you wanted to show, or do you want to utilize your 10 minutes to kind of close out
this article really quickly?
Okay.
It's a New York Times article that says small businesses have surged in Black communities. Was it the stimulus? The answer in the article and in the study that they're actually citing says yes, that the stimulus, the unemployment plus the pandemic unemployment insurance that came, the supplemental with the state unemployment from the federal, as well as PPPA that Black entrepreneurs had access to. What they're saying happened is because of this infusion of capital into the United States economy and the fact that Black Americans had access to this particular capital, our startups have outpaced everybody else's throughout this pandemic. Even though early on, Black people were the ones who were getting boxed out of the PPP, once they re-upped on that and Blacks had access to it, Black people's startups have outpaced every other people in this country. So for the proponents of the idea that if Black people got money, they wouldn't spend it on Jordans and hair weaves, that's a lie. This particular study dispels that. So if we got reparations, this is an example of what would happen. It wouldn't go on hair weaves and Jordans. It would go on businesses, because Black people have enough sense to not want to continue to be subservient to white folks and want their own independence, like we keep talking about Black people wanting independence. One of the ways to get independence is through economics, through finances, being able to take care of yourself and your family and not be dependent on white people for jobs, right? And so this is a great example of that, and I just wanted to show that. The other thing I wanted to really kind of ask is kind of rhetorical is, I know brothers saying that, you know, through these Pan-African conferences, they've asked the question, what happens if or when the United States says no? They've been saying no, right? That's not a new thing. They've been saying no, right? They've been saying no basically from the time of Reconstruction. We're going to start it and we're going to take it all back. So no, right? At the end of the day, they've been saying no. The real question is, out of those 5 or 6 conferences that they've had, What was the answer that they've come up with? And what is it that they're prepared to do on behalf of Native Black Americans? Are they willing to go to war with the United States when they continue to tell us no? Or is it something that we're just going to continue to confer about for another 6 conferences? Right? Everything can't be on us, right? Everything can't be on us. If this is a Pan-African thing and this is a thing about unity, it can't be about what is the African American prepared to do. Accept Pan-Africanism as what? An idea? I accept it as an idea. But if these groups of people who subscribe to that idea are not willing to take up arms and fight against the United States, this sovereign, independent world superpower, if you're not willing to do that, everything else is just talk. It's just talk. It doesn't matter. You got to answer the question and then be willing to back up the answer. It ain't for us to it's for the people at the conference. What did you tell me, brother? What did they say as an answer to when they tell us no? What did they say they was going to do? What did they say they were going to do?
May I share my screen? Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
All right. I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if y'all can see it. Oop. What did I do? Oh, hell. I done lost my page. Let's go back to, oh, here we go. All right. I got to go back to page 88. And so these are questions again that have already been addressed. And whether they're going to go to war with the United States, I don't think I have an answer for that. But part of the, see, I don't know if y'all can really see that. So this is what I'll do. So know that this is from page 88 and 89 of Black Africa, an economic and cultural basis for a federated state. I'm gonna stop it and reshare because I typed it all out because I knew that wouldn't be. So let me know.
We can see it, brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
So part of the, so again, as I stated before, that, you know, we've written out our plans in several different texts. And matter of fact, you had Dr. Maat, our good brother, Dr. Taka Kilimanjaro, on relatively recently. And, you know, he's put out a slew of books that address a lot of what we're talking about now. And it's just a matter of a lot of us implementing. But part of the conversation, like, for example, note number 14 here is to repopulate Africa. So this is in terms of African unity. So we already have a strategy and discussions in place to kind of set up. This is one of the reasons why we want to set up a United States of Africa, so that, you know, we can start the repopulation of Africa with people from the diaspora to add strength to that. And so that was point number 14. And then there was another point here that had to deal with the unification for military. Let me see, or was it army? Okay, so to create, I'm sorry, it's number point number 9 here. To create a powerful modern army possessing an air force and endowed with a civic education that would make it unlikely to indulge in Latin American type putschs. And so part of this unification strategy is, again, to unite the resources and to build a particular army. And this was partly discussed in, or I should say, how should I? All right. So, for example, this is Kwame Nkrumah, and one of the leading Pan-Africanists of his day, and he put something in here that needs to be considered. He says, and this is from his book Africa Must Unite, page 17. If we are to remain free, because remember, the goal of Pan-Africanism is freedom, is sovereignty, and is independence, and self-determination in terms of governing. If we are to remain free, if we are to enjoy the full benefits of Africa's rich resources, we must unite to plan for our total defense and the full exploitation of our material in human means, in the full interest of all of our peoples. To go it alone will limit our horizons, curtail our expectations, and threaten our liberty. So we've been understood that we can't go against the powers until we build up our defenses. Pan-Africanism is not only in terms of an idea and praxis, it is also a defense mechanism. And so I like to quote this book, Wretched Kush, even though it's about something totally different than what we're talking about right now. It has a point in here that shows why Pan-Africanism is a strategy in order to defend ourselves against these kind of colonial powers. And so he states, Doyle provides an even more explicit consideration of the dynamics behind native agency. He argues that while the interests of the agents of contact, in other words, resources exploited, must be considered, the character of the dominated society plays a critical role in imperial outcomes. He divides conquered societies into 3 levels of internal complexity: tribal, patrimonial, and feudal. According to Dole, a tribal society's critical lack of centralization and social differentiation makes it particularly vulnerable to aggression. And this is, in essence, what Dr. Nkrumah is saying here. And so, again, certain aspects of our goals as Pan-Africanists have not been achieved yet, but because they require certain steps to be achieved first. And so we're working on those unifying things so that when we, if we have some opposition in that we have armies that can defend our economic interest, but as long as people are still acting very tribal, even the states are acting tribal. Sheikh Anta Diop said something, and I hope I'm saying it correctly. He's like, something to the nature of that Africans are happy with failed states, and that European nations, unite. What text is that? You're muted.
Tribalism, mysticism, primitivism, and the rise of the genocide against the African world. He talks about tribalism. Go ahead, brother. So, yeah, it's relevant.
It's relevant. And so it's like, these understanding that our weakness is because of our disunity. Thus, the Pan-African Project in trying to get people to understand their common connections. When you understand your common connections and reason for being, you can unite under a common cause. So while the cultural and social, and to a certain extent, the economic relations and things are improving in terms of the Pan-Africanist Project, our next goals is the unification, of the states and the unification of the armies and things of this nature, because our ultimate goal is sovereignty and protection against these. That doesn't seem to be the goal here. That for a lot of us here, we just want to make sure that the yoke is off of our back so that we can prosper within the confines here of the United States. There are other of us that says, yes, we need that because all of us aren't going to Africa. We know that. You know, it's like over 30 million or 50 million. I forgot how many million African Americans there are here. Everybody's not going back to Africa, and everybody's not on the African plan. But there are those who understand that, you know what, ultimately, when they get tired of the United States, they need a place to go. And when they decide to go, we need to create a space. We need to terraform Africa in a way that they have a safe haven here. And so it's multiple projects going on at the same time again, because African people can walk and chew gum at the same time. You know, and so again, there's no debate, there's no argument. There's different goals. Pan-Africanist goals are ultimately sovereignty, and you cannot have sovereignty in another sovereign nation. Period. You can have, you know, greater autonomy here, but you can't have sovereignty. You can't have your own army here. You can't print your own currency here. The United States will go to war with you and kill you and or put you in jail. But if you have your own state, and not a state in the United States, talking about external to the United States, you can print your own money. You can set up your own economic system and things of this nature. That's the ultimate goal for Pan-Africanists. But we understand that there are a lot of us here, and we have to set up something here and fight for things here for those who are going to be here. So they also support the reparations movement. It is what it is. There's no debate. There's no dichotomy. It's not this, you know, we're at this point, we're just pontificating. We're saying the same thing. I don't disagree with anything that you're talking about when it comes to reparations.
Yeah,
here in the United States.
I don't. They on point. I don't disagree with Lord Abba and
nothing
at all. I don't. And I told him, Brother Asar, and Lord Abba will tell you, last week when he and I were building, I said, I'm a Pan-Africanist. I'm also a Black nationalist. So I can feel what he's saying. I can feel, you know, I feel it. I comprehend it. I don't disagree with it. But we're going to wrap up. We have about 13 minutes left on the broadcast, but I wanted to give each side 10 minutes to say something, because I think 5 minutes would kind of, you know, I know it's 13 minutes, but 5 minutes is just not enough time to kind of get things out. And so I'm going to hand it on over to Lord Abba and BTP Ali to give them 10 minutes to address anything that you said, Brother Asar, or to address something that they weren't unable to state, you know, when we were talking. And so they'll have 10 minutes, Brother Asar, and you'll have 10 minutes. So Lord Abba, you have the floor, King.
All right, definitely. Can you share my screen real quick? It's funny. You know, I listened to Brother Asar Imhotep. Somebody accused me of appealing to emotion, right? I understand the appeals to pathos, ethos, and logos when I hear them. And I also understand the abuses of those appeals. So I was just sitting there and I was kind of laughing to myself, because Brother Asar Imhotep has no model by which he showed. No model. Remember last week, I was on here, the very man that he brought up, Kwame Nkrumah, failed. His plan failed. He had the very thing that Pan-Africanists are still fighting for. This idea, this ideology. Well, they finally got their hands on it, right? What did John Henry Clark say? When we got it, we didn't know what to do with it. What did the Joker say? In the one movie, it's like a dog chasing the tire. The thing is, when he gets the tire, he doesn't know what to do with the tire. So let me read, because we got examples. We have history to show. So this is from an article, and I'm going to scroll back up and show the title, because I don't want to lose where I'm at. Okay, let me see. Where do I want to start this? Okay, it says, but the Republicans, talking about the left-wing Republicans of Reconstruction, not the right-wing fascist Republicans of today, succeeded in enacting civil rights legislation despite his opposition, which they're talking about Andrew Johnson, right? It says the Republicans also put the former Confederate states under military rule, stipulating that they would not be allowed to become self-governing and rejoin the Union Army unless they permitted black men to participate in politics on the same basis as a white man. We see that going on today. Brother Asar Imhotep is talking about sovereignty. Our sovereignty is collective in the United States of America. We share sovereignty as citizens. Yes, we go through it with these devils, but that's because we're not doing politics. We're trying to move all our people to a whole nother continent instead of fixing what's wrong here. It continues. The pariah states acceded with remarkable results. Quote, you never saw a people more excited on the subject of politics than are the Negroes of the South. Notice how I'm citing history and authors and our heroes from here. One planter observed, they are perfectly wild, quote unquote. Blacks enrolled in organizations such as the Union League, which encourage, look up the Union League, family, look it up, which encouraged political education through speeches and debates. They petitioned local authorities. They attended Republican rallies and conventions. They voted and ran for office, even in the face of violent opposition from resentful whites who were appalled by the prospect of blacks, including former slaves taking part in governance. Today, we got so many black House reps, but we only got 3 senators. What, is it 3 or 2? Kamala ain't one of us.
It's 3, and one of them is a Republican.
One of them is a Republican. That's right. You're right. And Kamala ain't one of us, right? So that's the problem. We only got 3 senators. It says between 1870 and 1877, I believe these are called the golden years, 16 blacks were elected to Congress, 18 to positions as state lieutenant governors, treasurers, secretaries of state, or superintendents of education, and at least 600 to state legislatures. Blacks never had decisive control over any state government, not even in Mississippi or South Carolina, where they constituted a majority of voters. But for a short period, they wielded sufficient power in substantial parts of the South to insist on the establishment of public education, laws relatively favorable to workers, debtors and tenants, and prohibitions against various sorts of racial discrimination. You see, this is what we call an example right here. But this was in the 1800s. You get into the 1900s and they kill off our civil rights leaders. All right, I got to share one more screen. I'm going to pass it on. They kill off. So now we start listening to Kwame Ture and them and I think I'm saying his name right, and all of the Pan-Africanists. And now they talking like Brother Asar Imhotep is talking right now. Take our political power out of this place where we're at and then move it to this place right here. Can you share that, please? Okay, so now we see African countries with the highest criminality levels, according to the Organized Crime Index, Statista.com. Those that follow our channel know that we use this website regularly for statistics, right? And it gives you a breakdown. Nigeria, the Republic of Congo, the Central African Republic, Somalia, South Sudan, Libya, Ivory Coast, Mali, South Africa. And these are just the top 10. So you want me to move without fixing the criminality here into the criminality of a whole nother country. We're ruled by some devils for the most part here, but over there it's black people doing it. Let me stop sharing this screen. Let me share one more screen real quick because I don't know this fantasy. I gotta always call it Wakandan, Zamundan stuff that these brothers in this Pan-Africanist movement is talking about. I just don't understand it. The 10 most corrupt African dictators in modern history. These are some of them. It runs through a whole list of them, right? It runs through a whole list of them. But I want y'all to see the faces of these people if they're showing the faces. These are the people that look like us. These are the people that Asar Imhotep is trying to get us to go and be up under. That's absolutely crazy. Guess what I can do? I can move $700,000, 700,000 of my people from different states to the state of Mississippi. And with just 700,000 of us, we take over the state. We take over the governor because we're going to vote for our governor. The senators, we're going to vote for our senators. The House of Representatives on the federal level. Then on the state level, we get like, this is a doable plan, and it's been done already. The only thing that we didn't do in those days, as the article showed, was control a whole state. But we have that power now. We don't live in the 1800s. We know that white supremacy is a real thing, but we understand politics now, and we're not scared, because scared people run. They run to Africa. They run to Africa. We staying right here because you see these people behind me? These are freedom fighters. Harriet Tubman was a freedom fighter. Prince Rivers was a freedom fighter. Robert Smalls was a freedom fighter. Fannie Lou Hamer was a freedom fighter. They didn't run to Africa. They stayed here and fought. I'm not going nowhere. This is our land. The American flag is just as much as mine as it is these Europeans, these Asian Americans. Matter of fact, hold on. One more quick screen to share. For my brother Ali. One more quick screen to share. One more quick screen to share, sis. And I'm done. All right, this is the median. This is from the Color of Wealth report that was published a few years ago, right? There's a group highlighted here. The Japanese, they're highlighted. Their median value of household wealth in Los Angeles is $592,000. U.S. black descendant is $4,000. But if you take away any durable goods and you break down the true numbers, it's $200 liquid in Miami. I don't know if y'all can see that. Caribbean black in Miami, $12,000 median, but U.S. black, $3,700. We've been here. You trying to get us to go somewhere else to be prosperous where there's no prosperity at, because their people are coming over here. And then other people are coming over here and killing us because we are not fighting white supremacy correctly. Look at what it says in Boston. Caribbean black, 18,000 at the mean. $8 for U.S. black descendants. We are worth $8 in Boston. And you trying to tell me we got to go all the way to Africa? Nah, bro. No, we got to stay here and fight. I'm done. I'll give it up to my brother Ali. I hope I wasn't too long-winded past those 5 minutes, but no, I'm sorry. We not doing that.
No, go ahead and give it up to him. He's good.
My opinion is necessary information. But without moving the goalposts to ask any other questions other than what was asked, again, I have to reiterate, the answer is emphatically yes. Reparations can be achieved and has been without Pan-Africanism. I love Pan-Africanism just like everybody else. I'm not against it. I'm not against it. I'm not arguing against it. I'm saying that it's not a necessary component to our particular justice claim in this country. It's just not. It hasn't. No one's proven it to be. We want it to be. A lot of us want it to be, but that's just not the case. It's not necessary. It's not necessary for anybody's civil suits. It's not necessary to pass ordinances, statutes, or any other kind of legislation. So the bottom line is, just to answer the question with an emphatic answer, the answer is yes. Reparations can and has been achieved without Pan-Africanism. There's really no debate, like the brother's been saying. It's really not a debate. There's nothing to disagree with, because the history pans itself out. It shows you what it is. We can pull up cases from the, I think the earliest case was in the 1700s. The late 1700s, where the sister got won a slavery reparations case. It's in the timeline, brother. You know, right there in that website that you pulled up, ABBA earlier. You know, so the bottom line is it can be done. There was no Pan-Japanesism for them to get.
Pan-Asianism.
There was no Pan-Asianism. Like, they didn't need the entire Asian diaspora to come together in order for them to, you know, I mean, come on, man. Like, it's just like real simple stuff. Like, it's really not a debate. There's no need for us to get into ad hominems like the other brother did, was calling us names and, you know, kind of stuff. Like I said, I love this.
He went on his Instagram page trying to diss us, bro. He was posting up negative pictures about us instead of being here and doing what brother Asar Imhotep is doing, having a conversation.
respect to Asar Imhotep. I love this brother. I love his work, particularly on the glyphs. I used your work, brother, just so you know, when Sharif Bey had his debate with brother Reggie. I'm one of the people who helped Sharif Bey get all that information together to smash that dude. And I used some of your information, believe it or not, and when it comes down to the idea of whether or not Kemet means the land of the black people or whatever, so listen, I respect all of that, man. I think everything has its place. I just don't think that Pan-Africanism has a true place in the reparations fight for the people who are the descendants of those who were forced to bear the burdens of Negro chattel slavery in this country. And with that, I'm gonna say peace.
Peace to you, brother. BTP family. I'm holding up one of Asar Imhotep's books, Nusut BT. I've actually referenced this in a few lectures, brother Asar. When you broke down, I love how you broke down, King, and how it was an office and it was male dominated, but it wasn't male specific. And so, I mean, you gave a lot of good information in this book. You broke down Ma'at. And so I've referenced your book. I actually have your book, Illusia, Volume 1 and Volume 2. I have your book, The Bacolor. Actually, my book club will be reading that. And so I'm a fan of his work too. I just had to put that out there, BTP. I referenced brother Asar Imhotep, and I do got to give it up because he came by himself. He said, regardless of whether the brother shows up, and I'll be there, Doc. And he showed up. And I'm gonna get brother Sinjetti because he texted me and said, send me the link, and his butt didn't show up. But he has a young daughter. He has a young child. And so I don't know if he's tending to his wife or his daughter. But brother Asar was here. But brother Asar, you have the floor for 5 minutes, King.
Appreciate it. So first and foremost, I just want to say thank you for the good conversation. Brothers, we brought a lot of important information to the people. And I hope everyone reviews this conversation and, look at the sources and look at the arguments and, add it to your bag of wisdom. And with that said, I find this to be the case all the time, that you can agree with somebody and somebody will still disagree with you for agreeing with them. And that seems to be the case, here. And, there's a lot to be discussed. There's, the stuff that we're talking about here are university courses in terms of the information. So I like, like Brother Shakara spoke of earlier, like we brought up in Nkrumah, and Lord Abba said his plan, didn't come into fruition. Well, you got to understand that Kwame Nkrumah was overthrown in a coup, which was orchestrated by the American government. So of course, when you have plans and you're moving your people in a way, and then you have, like I said earlier in this conversation, you got to know, if you don't understand the role of Green Berets in the United States military, you would not understand the coups that always take place in these other countries. And so that's another conversation, is part of this conversation, and why, certain things have not been realized in the Pan-Africanist mission, so to speak. And so now, people are learning and they're re-strategizing to avoid those pitfalls that we've had in the past. Just like, a lot of us have learned from COINTELPRO and things of this nature. And those strategies, those are the same strategy of COINTELPRO they do for whole governments. And so if our Black organizations weren't as successful because of COINTELPRO, you can imagine what goes on in terms of other nations, which is why they don't want a United States of Africa, because then they can't exploit Africa in the way that they do. And so, again, this isn't, as I've stated before, reparations in the United States is part of the Pan-Africanist project. And it was discussed as well in many of the Pan-African conferences. So this idea that, it can be achieved without, Pan-Africanism is already in the fight in terms of reparations. And matter of fact, like the brother had mentioned at the beginning of the program, those initial people who were in in the fight for reparations, those are all Pan-Africanists. And so you have Pan-Africanists in the fight for reparations and organizing the arguments and things of this nature. So it's, again, it's not that's not a debate. The question ultimately is, what is your goal here in the United States? Is it sovereignty? And I'm talking about African American sovereignty, not just, you know, you have some rights as citizens here in the United States. Is it independence? Is it sovereignty? Is it freedom? If that is not the goal, then no matter what, all of these resources that you're using is still going to empower the Europeans here in the United States, because they outnumber you. And, you know, if you're trying to bring 700,000 people to Mississippi, you need 700,000 jobs. And so it's not an issue of just moving folks to the South. You know, you have to set up whole systems for them to be able to take care of themselves and feed themselves and things of this nature. And so just like the repopulation from the North and West to the South is part of a strategy to empower the people here, that is the same strategy that the Pan-Africanists have when it comes to Africa. Part of Africa's weakening is the depopulation and all of the best minds leaving Africa. Those Africans who come here sending money back home that are making those things. And so, you know, I'm just going to have to do an independent and have an independent conversation on Pan-Africanism, its goals. And I understand that everybody, you know, didn't take Africana studies courses like I did, you know, in the university and have these resources at hand. And so, you know, this is a conversation that needs to happen in the community and in a very systematic, you know, saying way. So this conversation has inspired me to put that together so that the people can understand. I'm putting in digestible form so you know what the exact goals are, what have been the history, what have been the successes, and what have been the failures, you know, in this particular movement and where we stand today. And, you know, go back to the beginning of the program. I gave some sources, and some of them I have an ebook. So if you want it, holla at me. And so you have the source material yourself, so you can get a greater understanding of this particular topic. So I'll end it with simply, be ashamed to die without winning a victory for African people. My name's Asar Imhotep. Peace.
Hold on, Asar. Hold on. I had to drop a bomb for all of my brothers tonight. Brother Asar Imhotep, Lord Abba, brother BTP Ali. I just want to thank you, brothers, from the bottom of my heart, you know, for just taking time out of your lives to be with us tonight. I mean, you could be doing anything. You all could be, you know, with the wifeys, the kids, you know, doing your own thing, working, making your money, writing books, you know, researching. But you took 2 hours out of your life, literally, to be here with me tonight and to be with the viewers. They loved it. I learned so much, and I'm just so full right now. You know, I was intellectually stimulated tonight, and I learned a great deal of information. Brother Asar, I think that is a beautiful idea to create a course where you kind of walk people through Pan-Africanism, and unashamedly, I'll tell you, I'll be right in your course. When I was going through Morgan State University, getting my undergraduate degree in electrical engineering and also my PhD in engineering, I didn't take, you know, Pan-Africanism. I took one class, and that was African Diaspora, History 350. That was all I took. And so the information that I accumulated over the years, I was self-taught. You know, I taught myself. I would go down to everyone's place, pick up some books and read on my own, an autodidact. And so I just, you know, I think that it would be nice to create a course like that. And, you know, hey, BTP, you brothers are fire. I've watched several of your YouTube videos. And so keep on keeping on getting this information out. I've been getting calls. You had Lord Abba and those brothers, I watched them on Be the Power. And so you brothers are disseminating, you know, good information. You're getting people involved in politics, because you had folks that weren't involved, and you all are waking people up saying, look, we have to use our vote, to get what we want. And so I just thank you, brothers, again, from the bottom of my heart. Family, join me back here. Join me back here on Friday. I have Judge Joe Brown coming on Friday. So he'll be here on Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be talking about politics, because he's going to go in on the Democratic Party. He can't stand the Democratic Party. He said, Dr. Maat, I don't know why Black people still support the Democratic Party. Those are slick. I mean, he goes in.
Did
so
you
we're going to be talking
interview with him, sis?
No, I need to go and check that out.
I was like, oh man, this dude is going. And we had two sisters on, and he was flirting with the sisters, because I brought two sisters on to help do the interview. I was like, this dude is off the chain.
So he was kicking knowledge and then flirting with the.
He was like, hey, y'all two are easy on the eyes. He said, I ain't as good as I used to be, but sometimes I'm better than I ever was.
You know what? I can't.
I was like, yo, this dude
the old player. Old player,
wow.
Them old players, boy, you know, you be ending up in places and you be like, how did I get here? It's the old players, them old players, man. And so but he'll be in the building. He'll be in the building on Friday, Judge Joe Brown. And I forgot who I got. Let me pull this up. And I know that probably was rude to say I forgot who I got. Oh, and it's Juneteenth, that Saturday. And I'll be bringing on Dr. Batu Shikari. This doctor, he gets mad when we celebrate Juneteenth. I celebrate it with my family. We all going downtown and we're going to celebrate it. But
got a rally. Can I say real quick, sis?
Yeah, go ahead, plug your rally, please.
Atlanta, Georgia, next Friday at the State Capitol building, we are having a Juneteenth reparations and justice rally. We got some powerful politicians coming out as well. It's time for us, brother Asar Imhotep, if I could just get 20, 30 quick seconds. I think it's time for us to elevate. I think we know a great deal of our respective fields of African information, right? Because Moorish information is African information. I never really did the pseudo Moorish, this is our land, we're indigenous nonsense. Y'all seen what my information was rooted in. But I think that at some point we have to engage in politics. Are you familiar with Moses Dixon, brother Asar Imhotep? Okay, so then you know that his order was the very first freedman fraternity here in the United States of America, a bad man. And I think that it's time for us to start pulling elements of all of our different schools of thought together. And I think that should be our Pan-American unity, right? That's my idea, my opinion. But you have a specific teaching. We have a specific teaching. And I think if we can start pulling that together into one confraternity, male and female, I think we can do something powerful here. Our streets are, they're going into decay. Crime is up 300% in most Black cities. We have no new Nation of Islams. We have no new 5%ers or Moorish Science Temple of Americas, or, what I'm saying? We don't have any of those types of institutions. I'm quite sure you can name a few as well. But now I think it's time for us to look at what like Moses Dixon did with his fraternal order and start the process of real unification. I'm done. Thank you, Sister Dr. Maat.
No problem. I was just saying, Dr. Batu Shikari, he's going to be on Juneteenth. So after our party in Baltimore, the family, we're going to get together. We're going to do fireworks, all kind of stuff, African drumming. We're going to have a ball, downtown in Baltimore City. Shout out to brother Everett Winchester, who's the organizer. He's a part of the UNIA Baltimore chapter. They are the people who are hosting the Juneteenth celebration. So family, if you're in the DMV area and you want to come out on June 19th, get in touch with brother Everett Winchester. He's on Facebook. So you just shoot him an inbox message and he can send the flyer to you. All right. But after we celebrate Juneteenth, I'm going to be bringing on Dr. Batu Shikari to talk about, because he's against celebrating Juneteenth. He's against it. He's like, we're not free. You all out here celebrating. Yes, we were emancipated from chattel slavery, but we still got a lot of work to do. And so he's going to come on on next Saturday to talk with me about that. So family, thank you for being here. I see a lot of new names in the building. And I said, so that's Asar Imhotep's folks and the BTP, look, the BTP people are in the building. So family, thank you so much for coming out. I've been looking at all of your messages in the chat, and you all have been having some interesting conversations going back and forth in the chat. So I just thank you for saying something so that we know that you're here. We know that you're watching. And thank you for commenting. But please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell so that as soon as I go live, you will be notified. Again, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Peace and Black Power.
Let's combat and fight back with maltracks. The war of the minds, they want control of the masses. And Common Core, they dumb us down in the classes. Without knowledge, we can't gain access. Build with the elders, take notes and write classes. We keep whining on the block, how it's gonna stop? Let's start supporting our own, make their supply drop. We buy stocks, then we buy blocks. Cause we know the truth and we tuned in to Dr. Maat.